Right, good afternoon, everyone. So we'll continue with the method of payment for a while. And as I said the other day, uh, we'll allocate some time, about 45 minutes to 1 hour, to give a paving to the Forex section. And I hope there are about 14 people, including myself, there are 14 people logged in. So hope they were there for the initial stages itself. So we'll do the cycle or the nutshell of the documentary correction, right? That is the board. In a documentary correction, there are two aspects being discussed. In documentary correction, there are two aspects being discussed, right? One is the documents against payment. We call that as DP. Another one is the documents against acceptance. You term that as DA. DA and DP, right? Both of these DP and DA segments are being governed by a set of rules called the Uniform Rules for Correction The ICC publication number 522, 1995 revision. So the Uniform Rules for Correction, that's not the set of law actually, it's a set of opinions and rules and regulations to make the trade, the practitioners and the people who are involved trade to have some kind of an uniformity. This Uniform Rules for Correction, or commonly known as URC 522, has come into being. This URC 522 has 26 articles. 26 articles. So we intend discussing about those articles, not in the numerical order from 1 to 26. At least 50 to 20 articles I will discuss with you, because those articles are slightly complicated, and with a plain reading, you won't be able to grasp it what the article says. But before going to URC 522, we need to understand the cycle of the documentary correction. Now you are going to get a question, the fully fledged question from URC 522, and cannot afford to miss that. Right? It's not a difficult question, but then the perimeter of the study area is a bit vast. So as far as possible, I will try to simplify the articles. I will get you the articles next time. And remember, keep the articles very safely and do not share the articles. We'll see what is the mechanism of the documentary correction, right, in brief form. So the parties to a correction bill, before coming to that, the main two parties are the buyer and the seller. Buyer and the seller. Buyer known as the drawee. Buyer known as the drawee. In case of a collection transaction. Now, we studied about the open account and advance payment, and both these guys are termed as buyer and seller, simply as buyer and seller. But you don't call the buyer as the buyer in case of collection, and the seller is known as the principal. Principal. Okay. Give it Seller is known as the principal. Buyer known as the drawee. Please advise me if the board is not clear. And the seller is known as the principal. You have to remember and by heart those terminology, right? Is the seller and drawee is the buyer. So they have a sales contract. It's a contract of sale. Now, in case of a collection, principal, being the seller, has to perform. You know, in international trade, he has to perform in two ways. One, he has to part with the documents, and simultaneously, he has to part with the goods source as well. Right. So, goods are invoiced now. The goods has to be dispatched, consigned to drawee. Consigned to drawee. Consigned to drawee. The documents, that is the shipping documents, you know what the shipping documents are, the commercial documents, the transport documents, and the actual personal certificate, or any other documents that the drawee wants for clearing purposes. You have to collect all those documents, and we can't send the documents to the drawee, unlike in the advance payment or the open account method. These set of documents after collecting, he has to give the documents or forward the documents to his bank called the remitting bank. Remitting bank. Right? This remitting bank will transmit those documents. This remitting bank will transmit or forward the documents along with the collection instruction. I'll explain. Along with the collection instruction, I will say CI here. It's not just a mere covering schedule or a covering enclosure saying the documents are being enclosed, but it's a collection instruction. The documents plus the collection instruction will be sent to a bank called collecting bank. Collecting bank. The collecting bank is mainly in the vicinity or the locality of the drawee. Right? Now the drawee is in a different country and the principal is in a different country, right? And the principal is the seller or the exporter. If the collecting bank is unable to reach the drawee or is unable to summon the drawee because of the geographical situation or some other reason that he is unable to communicate with the drawee, then the collecting bank will, on its own record, will choose another bank in its close proximity of the drawee, and that bank is called the presenting bank. Presenting bank. Now, the remitting bank has forwarded the documents, which the documents being received by the principal, along with the collection instruction to the collecting bank, and such documents being forwarded to the presenting bank because they were unable to reach the drawee. And they will seek permission from the remitting bank if they are unable to reach the drawee to choose a presenting bank. On their own record, they can, get into a presenting bank if they have relationships and reach the drawee. This presenting bank will deliver the documents to the drawee. Deliver the documents to the drawee. if the collective bank able to deliver the documents to the drawee straight away without consulting of a presenting bank, then this collecting bank becomes the presenting bank. So therefore, you need to understand the presenting bank is a bank who will deliver the documents to the drawee. Right. I'll come again. Based on the collection instruction, principal has collated the documents which the buyer needed, and such documents cannot be sent across to the drawee. It's true that the documents are consigned to drawee, like the goods, but such documents has to be submitted to his banker. We call the remitting bank. Remitting bank will release the document to a collecting bank with a collection instruction. This collection instruction is a covering letter. Includes the documents all right, but the remitting bank will instruct the collecting bank or any ensuing banks how to handle the documents. A covering schedule or a covering letter will not instruct the recipient how to handle the documents. They will just forward the documents as it is, as if that they have received from so and so. Or maybe they will say, please do the needful. But in this case, in a collection, the remitting bank will instruct how to handle the documents. So one of the instructions may be that the remitting bank will give the collecting bank and to the ongoing banks is to deliver the documents either on DP, that is documents against payment, or on DA, documents against acceptance. Right. Now we'll take the aspect of, I hope that you have taken the read of it, but it will be repeated slightly, and we will be doing the anatomy of these particular areas when we touch the URC next week. Right. So you need to have an understanding of the cycle of the collection before coming to the URC. So need you worry about the remitting bank and the collecting bank and the presenting bank if you have a little bit of a what you call gray area in there, that will be repeated again in detailed form when we touch the URC. Right. Now we have to see how this cycle get appropriated with the DP, and if it's a DA document, how to handle. Right. Now we'll go to the DP first. If it's a DP, then the remitting bank will give instructions to deliver the documents against DP, that is documents against acceptance. And if the documents against acceptance means the presenting bank deliver the documents if the value of the documents is say $1, where the documents is $1, then the presenting bank will not release the documents if the drawee won't pay the $1, that is $1 to the presenting bank. So the remitting bank, together with the principal, will know document will not get released to the buyer unless the buyer paid, unless the buyer has paid. So to some extent, the principal's risk has got mitigated, unlike in the open account trade. In open account, documents are sent across the drawee, goods are sent across the drawee's country, both are being consigned to the drawee, and the seller has to look up and wait until drawee pays. And for that matter, drawee has a grace period of 365 days to forward the surcharge debt to his banker and to get the remittance repatriated. So, of course, in case of open account, seller faces a very, very high risk. But that kind of risk, on the face of it, it's something like open account, but the risk being mitigated. One thing is in case of a DP I'm talking of, because the documents, value of the documents has to be considered by the drawee first before getting the documents across, and also the documents are not going astray because they have to be channeled through banks. You cannot send the documents straight away to principal drawee if the drawee request even. It has to come through banks. It has to be channeled through banks. Right. So in case of a DP, presenting bank has the documents that the coverage schedule or the collection instruction says to deliver documents against DP, against the payment. Then they will summon the drawee, and the drawee has to pay the document, value of the document first, and get the documents to his hand and go for the clearance. Right. and such monies will be remitted to the remitting bank. To the remitting bank via the collecting bank. So, remitting bank has the principal has the account in the remitting bank, and the principal will get credited. In case of DA, documents against acceptors, the mechanism is slightly different. That is, the remitting bank will give instructions to the collecting bank to deliver documents against acceptors. Deliver documents against acceptors. So therefore, these documents will have another additional document, a bill of exchange. So now it goes without saying, drawing a bill of exchange is a must in case of a DA collection. So we have two collections, DP collection and DA collection. In the case of DP, in case of DP collection, drawing a bill of exchange is not necessary. But if he's drawing a bill of exchange, issuing a bill of exchange, such bill of exchange has to be a side draft. But in the case of a DA collection, drawing a bill of exchange is a must. Drawing a bill of exchange is a must. That's a slight exception to the statement that I'm making now. When we do the Article 8 of the URC on the creation of documents, then we will see an exception for this statement that I said. So don't worry. For the moment you take into consideration, drawing a bill of exchange is a must, because acceptors cannot be taken on a normal document. Acceptors has to be taken. You can accept only a financial instrument or a document. So therefore, principal has to draw a bill of exchange in the case of a DA. Then you get the bill of exchange, then the documents, the collection instruction of the remitting bank will go to the collecting bank. If the collecting bank is able to read the drawing straight away, this collecting bank becomes the positive bank. Otherwise, they will choose a positive bank. And the positive bank will deliver the documents against acceptors. Now, what is acceptor? Now, he has these two documents. So, with the collection instructions, there are three documents. So, positive bank will have in the documents, there is a bill of exchange also been attached. So, positive bank will detach the bill of exchange. Detach the bill of exchange and give the drawing to accept. Give the drawing to accept. Now, we will appreciate if I had taken a printout, I have given a specimen of a bill of exchange. At leisure, go through the documents one by one and try to study and try to visualize what type of document that I am talking of. So, the bill of exchange is detached and given the drawing to accept. How does he accept? He will just say accepted on there. And he will discharge his signature on the fiduciary capacity. I used those terms earlier also, on the fiduciary capacity. So once the bill of exchange accepts by the drawee, such bill of exchange is called the accepted bill of exchange, which the percentage bank is going to retain by themselves. So they will have the accepted bill of exchange, and the rest of the documents will be released to the drawee, no payment. On the due date, obviously, a bill of exchange, there is a user's draft will carry a date of maturity. On the due date, which the maturity falls on the due date, we specified on the bill of exchange, the drawee will have to make the payment. Remember once again this repetition, until the bill of exchange is accepted, drawee is not liable to pay. But if the drawee has accepted the bill of exchange, that means in all means he has agreed or promised or been obligated to pay at maturity with the bill of exchange has been determined. Right? So he has the what you call the percentage bank has the bill of exchange now, not just a bill of exchange, but the accepted bill of exchange. Rest of the document will be given to the drawee. Drawee has clear consignment and enjoying the goods, no payment. Right? On the due date, when the due date falls, Dovey, if he doesn't show up or if he evades the payment, then processing bank will notify the remitting bank that the bill remains unpaid. Right? Not beyond that, processing bank is not liable to chase behind the payment and satisfy the remitting bank. That is very, very important. When we discuss Article 26, we will understand that. Right? So these are very, very special ingredients because when I'm doing the articles, these little things might get skipped a little bit. So therefore, you need to catch up and note down very carefully. When the processing bank, when the dowry doesn't show up on the due date as promised by accepting the bill of exchange, then the processing bank will just notify the unpaid bill. That's all. Remitting bank will not have a charge against the processing bank, or in other words, processing bank is not liable if the bill is unpaid. Right. So let me have a feedback on that because it's slightly complex when you compare with the open account and advance payment. Just Cast, give me a feedback whether you understood or not on that. I'll move on to the next session. There are two comments saying that the whiteboard is not clear. I hope that is clear now. In the meantime, let me know if you have understood the concept of the DP and DA, and just make a comment so that I will proceed with the rest of the thing. Right. Kaushal Perera, understood. I need one or two. If you have a difficulty of understanding, let me explain again, but you have to tell me whether it's clear enough. Right. I will explain, yes. What area did not you did understand? The whole concept of DPDA, or if it is only DA, or whether it's DP or the whole? Just give me a feedback on it. Don't worry, I will explain again. And a particular area, or you need to explain again. Whole process as a summary. Fine. Right. So that will benefit for the people who have understood those as well. Right. Now document correction. Don't worry, I'm not rushing, but I will give you a summary form, right? Document corrections are dealt in two segments. That is what you call documents against payment. Documents against payment. Documents against payment that we discuss in detail in Article 17, and documents against acceptance. Acceptance. Article 22. Right? So, what really means by documents against payment, I will discuss when I'm touching the Article 17. Documents against acceptance means in a layman form is you accept the documents, that is the dowry, being the buyer, has to accept the bill of exchange and have to pay on maturity, which is stated in the bill of exchange. And in the meantime, he can create a consignment and enjoy the goods. So he will have a supplier's credit of 90 days or 45 days or 60 days or whatever, can go up to 180 days or beyond that, and he can have a grace period, right? So the buyer of the collection is always, whether it's DP or DA, is called the drawee. Drawee, D-R-A-W-E-E. And the seller of the collection is always called the principal. Principal. Right? You don't term as a seller, but it's a principal. Now there's another question coming through. I hope the others also can see the question of Sachin Das. That is, can the principal directly send the documents to the drawee? If so, under DA, what will be the recourse? Fine, I think I have answered. We'll see that also as well. So these are the two guys who have with the collection, draw with the principal. In the capacity of the buyer and the seller, they would have had a sales agreement. Drawee and principal do not have any sales agreements, right? Buyer and the seller, two guys, have had sales agreement or contract of sale. So they have decided to fall in the trade transaction of themselves under document collection, not under open account, not under advance payment, but under collection. So in case of a collection, principal has to send the document, what you call the goods across to the drawee. Drawee means to the drawee's country. And these goods has to be dispatched, consigned to drawee. Consigned to drawee. Now, little by little, you should be able to get yourself related to certain terminology that I'm using. So I use the word consigned in there. I hope that you understood. Right. So the documents are what you call the goods have been consigned to drawee and sent across. And the documents also has to send across the drawee. Satya, just consider I'm what you call considered. I'm interested into your question also as well. But in case of open account and advance payment, documents are straight away sent to the drawee or to the buyer. But in the collection, documents have to be channeled through banks. So therefore, documents cannot be sent across to the drawee. They have to be channeled through a bank. So these documents have to be given to the principal's bank, which is called the remitting bank. Remitting bank. Remitting bank, draw their covering letter is called the collection instruction. Collection instruction. A very powerful document. That's the most powerful document you find in a collection transaction, the collection instruction. Along with the documents, we send across to a bank called a collecting bank. The collecting bank is always in the vicinity of the drawee. And that is the collecting bank. So collecting bank is the bank other than the remitting bank who held the collection order on behalf of the principal. Don't take it down. I will explain that when you come to the Article 3 of URC, parties to a collection. So the collecting bank will read the drawee. If he is unable to read the drawee because of due to formal reason, he will reveal the reason why to the remitting bank, why he is unable to approach. Instead, he will choose a bank in a close proximity of the drawee on his own account, and that bank is called the presenting bank. Provided that bank can deliver the documents straight away to the drawee. If that job could be done by the collecting bank, then the collecting bank is not the collecting bank, then it is the presenting bank. So how to deliver the documents is either by DP or by DA, or there's another condition. You can release the documents free of payment also as well, FOP. How do you decide? Collection instructions will say you release the document free of payment. So we'll concentrate on DP and DE only for the moment. So the document could be released under DP. If it is under DP, I will say drawee here. One wing is DP, other wing is DA. If it is DP, drawee has to pay the value of the documents first. Value of the documents first, and get the documents across to the drawee. Then the presenting bank will release the documents. If the drawee is not giving the value of the documents, then the presenting bank will not oblige to release the documents to the drawee. If they release, nevertheless, then the remitting bank will find fault with them. In case of a DA, presenting bank will detach the bill of exchange, which accompanies the documents, and give the drawee to accept the bill of exchange first. So once the drawee accepts the bill of exchange, such bill of exchange is termed as the accepted bill of exchange. The proceeding bank is going to retain that. They will retain the accepted bill of exchange. Accepted bill of exchange. Remember, once you accept the bill of exchange, you are liable. So drawee takes the rest of the documents and he will enjoy the goods after clearing until the bill of exchange matures for payment. On the date of maturity, if the drawee pays, the proceeding bank will execute the payment order. Execute the payment order. You remember, in case of an open account and advance payment, the execution of the payment order is the MT103. You remember, the SWIFT format is MT103. But in case of a collection, the execution, the payment order has to be message type, MT stand for message type, 202. 202. That's very important. So the proceeding bank will check the payment order on the format 202 to the remitting bank. That is if the drawee has made the payment. In case of a DA falling due for payment on the due date, if the drawee comes and makes the payment. And in the case of a DP, most of the documents are released, the payment being given to the bank, and immediately the proceeding bank will remit the money to the remitting bank. In case of a DA, on the date of maturity, drawee comes and makes the payment, then the payment will go under 202 to the remitting bank on the maturity date. But on the maturity date, if the drawee has not shown up, now he has cleared the consignment, right? But he has not made the payment. That's a willful default. Then proceeding bank will just notify the remitting bank saying that the bill remains unpaid. Right? Bill remains unpaid, and the proceeding bank is not liable for payment for the remitting bank. Right? So what the next course of action the remitting bank would do is that the case that we are going to discuss in Article 24. So it's a very tedious thing. These are articles, not just reading. Articles are written in an ununderstandable way. That's why I call that as articles. Right. So now I think Varun, somebody wanted to explain. No, Varun is using. Now just let me know. Varun. Got it. Right. Thank you. Anybody else want to have a little bit of a simplification? Others understood? Anybody else have understood very well? Except for Varun, I mean. Can the connecting bank and the processing bank, can the connecting bank and not the processing bank child, is the presenting bank. Presenting bank. If the connecting bank can deliver the document, remember only the presenting bank delivers the document to drawee. If the connecting bank able to deliver the document to drawee, then the connecting bank becomes the presenting bank. Understand? Right. Oshani, thank you. Gihani, thank you. Sajita Gamage, fine. Now, there's a question from Shabangi Samudini. Can the collecting bank and it should be not presenting bank, should be presenting bank, I think. It can be same, yes. It can be same. If the collecting bank reads the document with the drawee, then the collecting bank's doing the job of the presenting bank. What you need to remember is where you get caught. What you need to remember is the presenting bank who delivers the documents with drawee, not the collecting bank. If the collecting bank is able to deliver the documents with drawee, then the collecting bank convert themselves into a presenting bank. Right? I hope that you understood that well. Fine. Right. So we'll go to the next method of payment. That's more complex, but that's the last method of payment. Document credits. document credit. Right? So document credit, also these two guys are there, right? Buyer is known as the applicant. And the seller is known as the beneficiary. Seller is known as the beneficiary, not as the principal. You find the principal only the collection. And he is not the buyer, neither is the importer, but is the applicant. Right. Actually, a document credit means the bank gives a guarantee. It's a basic, don't take it down, just listen only. The bank gives a guarantee to the beneficiary with regard to the payment, provided the stipulated document being asked is a letter of credit be fulfilled by the beneficiary. That is the nutshell. It's basically a guarantee. Right. So in this case, as the buyer and the seller, they would have had a sales agreement, and the buyer comes to his banker. Listen carefully. Buyer comes to his banker and requests the bank to issue a letter of credit. Letter of credit, that means LC. And this particular bank, if he agrees, that is called the issuing bank. Basically, it is the applicant's bank. So issuing bank will send the letter of credit. That's a letter of undertaking, letter of credit, to the beneficiary. Usually, banks will not execute their letter of credit straight away to the beneficiary. What they will do is, the issuing bank will, with the format of the letter of credit, MT700, and they will execute the MT700 to their one of their correspondent banks you find in the locality of the beneficiary. That bank is called the advising bank. Advising bank. Right? So, advising bank will advise the letter of credit to beneficiary. Advise the LC to the beneficiary. So, the beneficiary will come over to the advising bank and pay the advising bank charges and correct the original LC and go. In a letter of credit, in this original LC, which the advising bank has given to the beneficiary, it's a big sheet of paper. So, specimen of the LC application I have given to you all. You can just go through that. That is the application given by the applicant to the issuing bank. So, issuing bank will send the execution, which I have not included in there, under 7700. That's a bit of a lengthy affair. So, this MT700 will carry conditions and what documents be required. Condition, what are the documents needed on a lengthy matter. When you say document needed, they will specify what the document is and how to draw the document and what contents has to be in the document. Everything be specified in under conditions. And apart from any other conditions, that if they want a document evidence, then they will put a condition again. For example, if they want to have a serial mileage on a particular vehicle import, they can't just make a confirmation saying that it's serial mileage. They have to get an inspection certificate which carries the odometer. And by whom the particular certificate has to be taken, this LC will be specified. So you get the conditions and the documents required or any other matter. So the beneficiary has to not only have to collect all the documents, they have to make sure those documents have been drawn according to the condition we typically do the trust credit. So the collected documents, then the beneficiary will give to his banker. Now this banker, when you say beneficiary banker, it not necessarily be the advising bank. Advising bank is the bank who have been chosen by the issuing bank. So beneficiary will give the documents as per the LC to his banker, which is called the negotiating bank. Negotiating bank. Negotiating bank. Understand? Applicant has requested his banker, the issuing bank, and the issuing bank has obliged, and since they are anticipated there's a letter of credit transmission via an advising bank, and the advising bank has read the letter of credit to the beneficiary. Beneficiary will take time to collect or the perform of the documents, and he will forward the collected documents to his banker, and that bank is called the negotiating bank. This bank will check the documents. What do you mean by check? Is not the literal term of it. I will explain when we do the UCP under Article 14. Under examination of documents, we'll discuss what do you mean by check. Right? So this negotiating bank will check those documents. They will check for the condition. They will check for the documents required. Every detail of the effect of the letter of credit and submitted document will be checked. And for that checking, they have 5 banking days. Following the day of receipt of the document. If you receive the documents today, and if they have received the document during the course of business hours, then the 5 days will be counted. 5 days, 5 banking days will be counted from tomorrow. So they have 5 banking days for the following day of receipt of presentation. And after checking those documents for 5 days, that doesn't mean that I am checking the document for 5 days. They have 5 banking days to check documents. The beneficiary cannot push the negotiating bank to check documents immediately, and he can't wait, stand in front of his table. So after checking documents, if the documents are in order, that is what you call, if the documents are compliant to the letter of credit, then negotiating bank will pay beneficiary immediately. Negotiating bank will negotiate documents. In other words, they will pay the beneficiary immediately. Now, that is the beauty of the cycle of the DC, that is documented credit. Now, see, beneficiary has, beneficiary banks has the document still. It has not submitted to the issued bank yet. Goods are void still. It has not reached the applicant's country at all. But beneficiary has got the payment. He got the payment because he has fulfilled the letter of credit the way that the letter of credit been asked for. So he gets documents negotiated, and when the documents are negotiated, that means the beneficiary has got paid. So now this negotiating bank has the documents in their hand. That's been negotiated already. They will courier those documents to the issuing bank. To the issuing bank. The negotiating document will be couriered to the issuing bank. Issuing bank will do the same check, a thorough check what the negotiating bank has done, and they have 5 banking days again. 5 banking days. Don't be a bit lazy to take 5 days in there. It's not 5 days, or it's not 5 working days, neither is 5 business days, it's 5 banking days. You might get caught in the MCQs sometimes, right? It's 5 banking days. So they have that period of checking, and if they find the documents are in order, then they will reimburse the negotiating bank. They will reimburse the negotiating bank. If they find a discrepancy in the documents, While checking the documents, if they find a discrepancy, their negotiating bank has overlooked, or they have spotted that discrepancy would have thought that's a very trivial discrepancy. Trivial discrepancy. That is a very small discrepancy. I don't think the issue bank or the applicant will make a fuss of it, and the negotiating bank will just pass the documents as if the documents are in order. So if the issue bank thinks that particular discrepancy is not a trivial discrepancy, but is a big discrepancy in the case of applicant when he try to pay the consignment, then what he will do is they will reject the payment and return the documents back to the negotiating bank. Now you see the negotiating bank is on spot. They have already negotiated documents beforehand, and there could be a threat of documents getting returned again if they find a discrepancy. So therefore, when the negotiating bank negotiates the document in the first outset to the beneficiary, they will negotiate with recourse. With recourse. Somebody has used the word recourse in there. I hope that she or he is a senior banker in there. So when they negotiate in the first outset, negotiating bank, before sending the documents across the issuing bank, they will negotiate with recourse. Recourse means the fallback action. So for that matter, beneficiary has to give a letter of indemnity. Letter of indemnity called as a letter of indemnity LI. So LI will give the recourse facility towards the banker to fall back again if the issuing bank rejects the payment. Right. I know it's not very smooth, but just make a comment whether you have at least slightly understood. So don't worry when we do the UCP, right? We will do it in detail. There are 39 articles in the UCP. Once we finish the URC, we will finish the Incoterms, then I will start the UCP. Then I will go in detail, that it will refresh your minds. For the moment, just let me know whether you understood this, referring to the UCP process. This is just a typical UCP. It's not a practical aspect. That is more advanced than this, but at least you should know the nutshell of the document credit cycle. Yes, Valerie. Thank you. Anybody else? At least one or two. If you say yes, then I'm happy. Otherwise, I can go through once again. Kaushalya, can the advising bank and the negotiating bank? Yes. I didn't want to harp on the advising bank, Kaushalya, too much because we have a session for UCP. This will be discussed in lengthy in Article 9. Advising bank is just a postman. Right. There's a small announcement. Sorry for the interruption. A small announcement before I forget it. Next week, due to Christmas, I don't think they will have lectures, but both Saturday and Sunday. Repeat, due to Christmas, next weekend will not have lectures, both Saturday and Sunday. Right. So week after next, we will have this done, but I'm not getting the adequate time that we have missed it. Fine. So I missed one question, no? Can the advising bank and the negotiating bank the same? Right. So advising bank is just a postman. It's a postman. This bank will be chosen by the issue bank to facilitate the LC transmission. So advising bank's job is to advise the letter of credit as it is that they receive, like a postman, courier guy. So they will release release the original LC after collecting their charges to the beneficiary. If the beneficiary has an account with them, and if the advising bank is thankfully it's a banker for the beneficiary, then the beneficiary will give the document to the advising bank. Now the advising bank has become the negotiating bank. Right? So advising bank can be the negotiating bank as well. Or else, beneficiary, if it doesn't have an arrangement with the advising bank, then they will give the documents to the negotiating bank. One more thing to give a little bit of a wider spectrum of Kaushalya's question, there's another possible question coming to my mind. When the advising bank advise the beneficiary, when the advising bank advise the beneficiary, they will see advising bank cannot put a condition to the beneficiary that this particular documents has to be negotiated with the advising bank. They can do only on one instance when we discuss in Article 8 of UCP, then we have an exception. Then Kaushalya, then you will see the advising bank is the negotiating bank. Other than that, advising bank may become the negotiating bank if the beneficiary is feeling fit to give the documents to the advising bank. Otherwise, why should the advising bank negotiate the document if he is not a customer of them? Right. Now, I hope I detoured slightly, but the Kaushalya, did I answer your question? Ah, she has already replied. She or he already replied. Right. Thank you. Any other questions? No, no. So remember the parties in a collection. You have a drawee, the principal, the remitting bank, crediting bank, proceeding bank. Right? That's a little bit of a difference in there, but then I will let you know who are the parties to collection bill when we discuss about the Article 3 of URC. Next week we don't have classes, no? Fine. Then UCP, who are the parties? Applicant and the beneficiary. Those are the two main guys. Then you have the issue bank and the beneficiary, advising bank like that, and negotiating bank. Then there could be another bank called a confirming bank, which deals in the Article 8. Right? Those are the banks get involved. So my advice you to is you very carefully note down those banks. And at least for the name, what you call for the exam sake, you by heart them. If you write the wrong bank when you are constructing the answer, you will not extract any marks by the paper marker. Right. I have given a handout. Actually, excellent. I gave that. I want to give it on the next week. That is the various special forms of letter of credit, different types of letter of credit. I have given a handout. So we'll discuss that also simultaneously before going for the UCP. Don't worry about the LC is a huge mechanism all right for a practitioner. So this is for the exam purposes only. So letter of credit is basically a guarantee. Basically a guarantee given by who? By the issue bank to whom? To the to the beneficiary, provided all documents and the conditions being fulfilled as per the letter of credit. Right? So that is the letter of credit. So we will now it's 7 minutes to 2 o'clock. We'll have a pay into the forex, right? I hope that you have a small calculator and a notebook and some kind of, you mustn't get yourself refreshed a little bit like me and concentrate a little bit because you have here and there few arithmetic in the grade 5 standard. Fine. So when I just let me one or two students in here from the class of mine. Anybody who is following financial management, let me know. Just say yes or no. At least one or two students. When you are following the classes of financial management also simultaneously out of this group. Anybody? Yes, I'm not talking about the final market operations. I'm talking about financial management. So the guys who have followed financial management at least first 2 sessions or whatever, I don't know how many sessions that you have completed with my friend Sashikar, then you will get an idea what I'm talking of. But this is not treasury management that I am referring to. We have a little bit of a tail from the treasury get involved in the trade. So we are doing the foreign exchange related transaction which related to international trade and finance. Otherwise, it becomes duplicate. No? So there are certain aspects when I'm talking, when I'm doing certain what you call these formulas, you will have the similarity of the financial management also as well, but we have different objectives, right? So this is all about of exchange from one currency to another currency, right? Now, if you convert or if you debit a dollar account and credit a dollar account, then you will not have a position of foreign exchange. But if you debit a dollar account and credit the LKI account, or vice versa, then you will have a portion of an exchange, right? So when you convert one currency to another, that is from USD to LKR or LKR to USD, there could be an instance where you find you might have an exposure in the transaction itself. For example, now we have seller and the buyer are in agreement of an export. So seller has quoted the price for the buyer for number of cartons, say 10 numbers of cartons at the rate of $150 per carton. And the value of the 10 numbers of cartons is, we say $1,000. $1,000. So that is he quoted to his performer, to the buyer on day one. So on the day one, the exchange rate of the buyer's country, that is USD to LKR, will establish 185. That is USD to LKR 185. In other words, you need to have 185 bucks to buy or sell 1 unit of US dollar. So that's the exchange rate or the parity of the USD to LKR 185. So he agrees with the buyer, or with the seller rather, and he orders or he confirms the order. That's what we call a confirm order. He confirms the order for 10 numbers of cartons at 150 per carton, right? It's not 1,000 rupees when you multiply. I just took it too easy to simplify. So when the carton is received by the buyer has to pay 185,000 because the exchange rate is 185,000. But the bank will debit 185,000 to his account and debit $1,000 to seller. So that's for the transaction. But when the documents come, he ordered and he made a pre-order and he got the confirm order, and the documents may have come on the day 25th. Day 25th, the documents have come earlier bit, but the goods have come on the day 25th. On the day 25th, if the exchange rate has gone up to 186, so that means he is paying 1 rupee more for every dollar than the day one that he ordered. Now he can't find fault with the seller for that matter because he is sending 10 cartons at 150 per carton. But what is in his account is getting debited on May 25th by the bank, not for 185, but for 100, not for 186, but not 185, but for 186. So within the transaction itself, there's a risk. That risk is called the exchange risk, right? So that exposure is called the transaction exposure. Transaction exposure. Now we'll take another example. We'll see, we'll assume Sri Lanka has a company, A and company. Sri Lanka has a A and company, and this is Sri Lanka. We'll assume Bangladesh has a company called B and company. Assume that B and company is a subsidiary of A company. So we say instead of B company, we say A dash company. It's a fully owned subsidiary of A. But they are in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh currency is Taka, right? Taka. So we'll assume USD to LKR, USD to Bangladesh Takas is some rate X. USD to LKR will take a round figure of 185. So now we are talking about the export trade, right? So they are getting their for their earnings in dollars. Bangladesh also getting their earnings for the export in dollars. So when you get the dollars for the balance sheet, that has to be converted into takas, Bangladesh takas. These earnings when the exporter gets in dollars from the buyers, from foreign buyers, those monies has to be converted into rupees. If the value of the export is $1, a company will receive 185 rupees. If the value of the export is $1, a dash company will receive X. It could be either 184 or it could be 186. Factually not correct. I'm taking these two figures, either less than 185 or 186, more than 185. There's a regulation in the central bank. When you have subsidiaries on your own, the balance sheet has to be consolidated in the mother company's books. So these takas has to be converted into dollars. Or rather, these dollars has to be converted into takas has to convert into rupees. And the dollars is always in the rupees term. Dollars have been converted into rupees and shown in the balance sheet. These takas have been converted into rupees and shown in the balance sheet. Now, visualize on your own. If Bangladesh takas is stronger than the Sri Lankan rupee, when you convert takas into rupees, a company will show a profit. That's what you call a revaluation profit. But if the taka has gone down against the parity of the Sri Lankan rupees against dollars, then the consolidation account will have a loss. It's a book loss, not a realized loss, but it's a book loss. You have to show as a loss in the balance sheet. So you don't know from where you will get hit just because your own subsidiary. If the subsidiary is doing very well in Bangladesh, since the parity of the Bangladesh is lower than the Sri Lanka parity, then you might tend to have a loss. So the rule of the central bank, I said that all the assets and liabilities has to consolidate it, right? And that exposure is called the translation exposure. translation exposure. If the transaction itself there was exposure, that's called a transaction. When you consider the assets and liabilities of the two countries, translation exposure cannot be happened in the one country itself. It happens in what do you call global companies or multinationals, right? Translation exposure. Right. We take these two countries again, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. And we take two countries also, two what do you call companies also, two separate countries. There's no subsidiaries or no relationship among the two countries. I will take just B company and A company. But we will assume that A company and B company are in the same business. No any other countries are existing, only these two countries. And what are they importing? We'll say Teflon products, Teflon saucepan. Sorry, Teflon. Teflon means this, what do you call this, aluminum zinc coated non-stick pans, right? And this guy is also importing Teflon saucepans. Right? We take from France, they are importing both these countries, and B company is importing X numbers of pans at a rate of 5. X numbers of pans, Teflon pans, at the rate of 5. Sri Lanka also, this A company is importing X number of pans at the rate of 5. Good business for the freshman. Now what happened? These both two guys has a building, a 3-story building. 3-story building. This in Colombo, this in Sri Lanka, this in Dhaka. Right? Dhaka, that's the capital of Bangladesh. Say for instance, if the Sri Lankan guy wants to go for a skyscraper, so 3 stories becomes 30 stories. And for that they have assumed that they have expended 6 billion rupees. For the same price, if this guy also want to go for the skyscraper, because they have seen their competitor has gone up to 30-story building, they also will go for the 30-story building. And assume that they have expended only 5.9 billion of takas. BDT, Bangladesh takas. 5.9 billion. Now, they have gone for a syndicated loan out of their own reserves or by own their profits. They have taken loans and they have raised 5.9 billion. And like the Sri Lankan guy has raised 6 billion. In other words, they have expended more than 5.9 to go for the same structure. Because this is heavy expenditure of 5.9 by the Bangladeshis, they are unable to import the same number of X from the French guy. So we will export only X dash. So X dash is obviously less than X. Because they have reduced the quantity of import, French guy will put up the unit price. So it will be at the rate of 5 dash. That will be greater than 5. Sri Lankan guy will have the face the same situation. So they will not get down X. But they are unable to get X dash also because the expenditure is higher than this. So they will have a different figure of X double dash, and that is less than X dash. And because of the lesser quantity, French guy will put up the unit price at the rate of Y double dash, and that is greater than the Y dash of the Bangladesh. Now you see, in the long run, French guy will have a slight favor to the Bangladesh. And for the long run, these guys will, there could be a threat. I'm just talking about the fictitious stage. They might lose the agency. Because they can't keep it par with the Bangladesh guy to capture or charm the French person. Because already they have given the unit price is obviously higher unit price than the previous, but that unit price is lesser than the unit price you find here. So before they go to the local market, our consumers buy import from here instead. So that means because of this infrastructure, expenditure of the infrastructure, they are having an exposure. They might have exposure. That's what we call the economic exposure. So I have given a very comprehensive note on the classification of exposures. Go through very carefully, read 2 times or 3 times, and try to understand with this example that I have set. Right? The note that I have given is difficult to understand, it will not retain. But these 3 examples that I put forward to you will remember if you listen carefully. And after that, you read the notes that I have given, then you will understand. Remember, transaction exposure, translation exposure, and the economic exposure. Hope you are comfortable, right? I didn't ask whether you understood or not. Fear is that you say that you might understand. Right. Try to figure out some more on your own and try to, brush yourself up. I know that I have used little bit of a mathematical logics in there. 1 or 2 people at least might find little bit of difficulty, but try to put your concentrate a little bit and focus. You should be able to reach it out well. Right. Quote. The exchange rate could be quoted in 2 ways. It could be either direct quote or could be an indirect quote. Could be a direct quote or an indirect quote. Right? Direct quote means how much of home currency needed to buy 1 unit of US dollar. How much of home currency needed to buy 1 unit of buy or sell, right? 1 unit of US dollar. Example, USD to LKR. This is how we write the quote. USD oblique LKR is 185. Meaning 1 USD is equivalent to 185 times of LKR. In other words, you need to have 185 bucks to buy or sell 1 unit of US dollar. USD JPY will say 120. This is a direct quote. Indirect quote means how much of US dollars needed to buy 1 unit of home currency. Home currency means the legacy currency or the native currency or the home currency that you domicile. You are keeping your foot in London, the home currency of yours will be Great Britain pounds or sterling pounds. In Sri Lanka is the LKR. So indirect means how much of US dollar needed to buy or sell 1 unit of home currency. Example, GBP stands for Great Britain pounds, 2 USD equal to 1.6154 say. Or we take another example, UR USD 1.2137. These are not real figures, fictitious, but not very wrong. Right? Understood? So you need to identify what a direct code, whether that code is a direct code or whether it's an indirect code in the first place. When you see a parity being given in display. Usually there are 4 currencies quoted in an indirect manner. Right? 4 currencies, that is sterling pound, euro, Aussie dollars, and New Zealand dollars are quoted indirectly. Great Britain pounds, euro, Aussie dollars, and New Zealand dollars are quoted indirectly. Rest of the currencies are usually quoted as direct. So I'll give a thumb rule for you to understand easily or identify easily when being given a code to identify whether it's a direct code or an indirect code. If you tend to forget this, right? If the USD, currency USD or the letters USD placed on the left hand side of the oblique, then it's a direct code. Example of a thumb rule, USD X. If the USD is placed, now I can't give this as a note, it's a thumb rule of mine, right? So you have to take it into good spirit now. Rather, without challenging me, if the USD is placed on the left hand side of the oblique, it's called the direct code. Otherwise, it's called the indirect code. Example, well, you see, USD is placed on the right hand side of the oblique. And therefore, GBP to LKR is neither a direct code nor an indirect code. Why? You would see a US dollar placement either on the left hand side or on the right hand side. So therefore, these are called cross rates, cross currencies, cross rates, cross exchange rates, cross. Understood? Right. Give me a slight nudge whether you understood up to that level. That's no big thing I have given. Just let me know. Give me a nudge, 1 or 2, and tell me whether you understood or not. Can you record? Yes, I'm ready. Right. Thank you, guys. Can you please explain the direct code? Fine. A direct code means sun. Direct code means how much of your coding in the exchange rate or the parity, the manner, how much of home currency needed to buy 1 unit of US dollar. How much of home currency need to buy 1 unit of US dollar is called a direct code. The thumb rule of that is, if the USD is placed on the exchange rate on the left hand side of the oblique, then that is a direct code. Right? So the opposite side of that explanation is the indirect code. Right. Who asked that question? Sharangi, Samudini, understood? Got it, right. Now, remember, if there's a little bit of a teething issue also with regard to these, you need to make a note of it so that I will have a chance of explaining that, because you miss it will miss the bus completely, right? Because there are certain logics that I have to spell out, which cannot spell out in the, or rather put it in the handout. Right. Now focus, don't yawn. Now I'll take a direct code, a fictitious direct code. You know the meaning of fictitious? Fictitious one doesn't exist, right? These are dreams of Phil Bernard. The fictitious, right? Right. Before coming to that code, I need to explain one thing also. These all these codes, that is a direct code or a direct code, you always code, you is the bank, right? You always code in two ways. Two ways. Code is always two ways. Meaning, if you see a display here, you see like this 184.8563 or 184.0175. Like that, you have two codes, right? One is called the bid. You call that as the buying rate. Or other side, that is the right hand side of the figure, is called the offer. It's the selling rate. Always a code, irrespective of the code, whether it's a direct or an indirect code, it always you have a two-way code. In the case of a direct code, left hand side of the figure is called the bid, buying. On the other side is called the offer or the selling rate. Right. Now we'll go for that fictitious rate that I was talking. With this little knowledge. I will take a fictitious code, a direct code. Direct code. To express myself easy, I will take a very divisible, calculable two rates. That is a bid and offer rate. I will take as a calculable, divisible rates 2 and 4. Now you see how fictitious it is, right? 2 and 4. So this is the bid. This is the offer. The bid, this is the offer. Right. Spread. Yeah. Take it out with me, right? Spread is equal to, spread means the dealer or the treasury guy's profit. Right? Treasury guys or the dealer's profit. Spread. Now to calculate the spread, you have to deduct P and C, not in the algebraic manner, but in modulus figures. According to this, offer is higher than the bid. Offer stands 4 and the bid is 2 according to my example, and therefore spread is equal to offer minus bid. Offer minus bid. Right. To have a higher spread, in case of a direct quote, to have a higher spread, I will say spread, higher spread. Now look at this linear equation. You have a minus figure here and two figures in there. To have a higher spread, what you need to have? You have to have the highest offer. And you need to have the least bid. Least bid. When you have the highest offer and when you have the least bid, and when you deduct that, you get a higher spread. Difference becomes bigger when the offer is higher and the bid is less. Looking at the equation, you can see that, right? So therefore, the conclusion of this is to have a higher spread. In case of a direct quote, you always have to buy low and sell high. Buy low and sell high. Buy low and sell high. Right. Give me a feedback. Quickly, yes or no? Yes, come 2 or 3. Let me have feedback quickly. Conclusion, what the conclusion you got it now? In the case of a direct quote, you always, now you means the bank, not the customer. I'm talking about the bank perspective only. When the bank buys, the customer has to sell. That's obviously, that you have to figure out. Right? I'm talking about one way only. Right, Purnima, thank you. Anybody else? At least there will be 1 or 2 people. Understood? I hope others also have understood. If there's a difficulty, let me know. Can you just tell about the bid and the offer? Shortly, yes. Now, in a direct quote, this is Kaushalya again. This is a direct quote. You understood the fact that the quotes are being even given in 2 ways. So, always the left-hand side of that particular quote is called the bid. Bid means the buy rate. And the right-hand side of the oblique is called the offer. So I took an example, a 50 cents example, 2 to 4. In this case, in this particular example, US India direct quote, 2 is the bid and the 4 is the offer. Therefore, the spread is 4 minus 2, not 2 minus 4, it becomes algebraic. It's 4 minus 2. Then only you get a positive figure, right? You can say, if you have a little bit of mathematical touch, you can write it with the parentheses greater than 0. Otherwise, it's not necessary. So, offer minus bid is the spread. To have the highest spread, but the bank is aiming to have a higher spread all the time. To have a higher spread, you have to make sure the offer is high and the bid is less. Right? So, offer is high, bid is less, then the difference becomes high. So the conclusion of that, in the case of a direct quote, always bank will buy low and sell high. Kaushalya? Yes, understood now. Fine. Now we are coming to a little bit of a complication in there. And if you focus and if you look at 4 eyes, definitely 4 eyes means like me, like grand specs, should be able to understand well. Right. Now, before coming to the direct quote, I will give a small exercise. That is, I will take USD to LKR. You can take down with me is 100. Now, this is a direct quote. This is a direct quote. Here, look, USD is placed on the left hand side of the oblique. So, we will assume that the rate is, the parity is 100. So, into LKR 100 means 1 USD is equivalent to 100 times of LKR. The same thing, have no change. Right? 1 USD is equal to 100 times LKR. Therefore, 1 LKR is equivalent to 1 upon 100 USD. 1 LKR is equal to 1 upon 100 USD. That is understood? Right. So that means LKR divided by USD equivalent to 1 upon 100. So if USD divided by LKR is 100, LKR divided by USD is 1 upon 100. So looking at this itself, you can take it down mentally, right? I took the reciprocal item of the equation of this. If this is a direct code, now you see this is an indirect code. LKR to USD is an indirect code. You don't have an indirect code exists in this manner, but logically you can take it like that. So if the USD LKR is 100, LKR to USD is the inversion of this 100 because 1 upon 100. That is understood. Give me feedback quickly. Then I will move on to the manifestation. Right. Come again quickly. Right. Right. That's enough. Two people said yes. Unless otherwise, just anybody who did not understand well. Right. I assume that all the rest of the people have understood. So this is your for your brain exercise. This is now. This is the example that I have to give. Unit LKI is 2 to 4. Now this is a direct code. I am going to convert this into a direct code. Then this becomes LKR to USD. Like this. LKR to USD. Now this is an indirect code. Indirect. Right? I'll erase that part off now. Then the 2 becomes 1 upon 2 that the same way here you find it. If the USD LKR is 2, LKR to USD becomes 1 upon 2 obviously, right? 1 upon 2. So then becomes 1 upon 4. The offer also becomes 1 upon 4. Because it's LKR to USD. Now this is the bid. This is the offer. Not this term, right? Right. 1 upon 2 means 0.5. 1 upon 4 means 1 upon 4 means half of 0.5, that is 0.25. 0.25. So therefore, if the direct code is 2 to 4, LKR to USD, that is the indirect code, appears to be 0.5 to 0.25. 0.5 to 0.25. Now remember, whether it's a direct or an indirect code, there's a doctrine, there's a way of proceeding. No? So there's a rule actually, whether it's an indirect code or a direct code, right? Irrespective of whether it's direct or indirect code, always left-hand side of the oblique, the figure, right, has to be less than the right-hand side of the oblique. This has to be remembered very well. Huh? Left-hand side of the oblique has to be less than the right-hand side of the oblique. So therefore, if you try to satisfy this, keeping a code like this is wrong, because 0.5 is higher than the 0.25. But it says left-hand side has to be less. So therefore, 0.5 should come here and the 0.25 should come here just to satisfy this rule. So I will say 0.25 here and 0.5 here. By trying to satisfy this rule, what I have done is I have put the offer to this side and the bid to this side. So this is the offer now. This is the bid. Up to this point, this was the bid, this was the offer. But to satisfy this rule in a direct code, offer becomes this side and the bid becomes this side. So you have to remember, in the case of our indirect code, left-hand side figure is the offer. Right. Now you see 0.5 is higher than 0.25. Right. Now we check the spread. Spread is equivalent to, hence, spread is equivalent to 0.5 minus 0.25. So that means bid minus offer, not offer minus bid. In this case, offer, bid minus offer. Bid minus offer. To have the highest spread, you have to have the highest bid and the least offer. So conclusion of this is, in case of a direct code, to have the highest spread, you have to have a, you have to buy high, you have to buy high, highest bid, buy high, and sell low. You miss the bank again, sell low. So, sum up. In the case of a direct quote, you have to buy low and sell high. In the case of an indirect quote, bank fees always prefer to buy high and sell low. In case of a direct quote, bank prefers to buy low and sell high. It is indirectly proportionate. I'll give a small example, not very much appropriated, but for you to understand, if you have difficulty to understand what is indirectly proportionate means. I'll give a small example. Say this square, you won't see the square, but this is a classroom, right? You can see this is a classroom. Forget about the vents and the what you call the shutters and the windows in here. Just imagine this is a rectangular shape, sealed, rectangular shape room. To color wash this, two laborers will have two painters. Say, will take 2 hours. 2 hours. If you try to increase by another 2 painters, that is 4 painters, how much time will it take? 1 hour. So when you increase the labor, what happens? Time comes down. So times and the labor, according to my example, right, is indirectly proportionate, not directly proportionate, indirectly proportionate. Another one from very fundamental economics. When the money supply is in abundance or money supply increases in the market and primary dealers, the rate of interest will come down. When the central bank mops up the high liquidity from the market, rate of interest will go up. So the money supply and the rate of interest is indirectly proportionate, indirectly proportionate. Directly proportionate, of course, is understood, right? You have to buy, if you are buying 1 foot of orange for 5 rupees, and you have to make a, you want to make a 100% profit percentage, you have to set it 10 rupees, right? 10 minus 5 is 5, 5.5 is the cost. When you calculate from the of the cost against the increment, it will be 100%. So that part is understood. You have to buy something less and sell high to have a profit. That is all right. But in the case of an indirect quote, you have to buy high and sell low. This is how you prove it, right? If you think that it will be cumbersome to understand this, doesn't matter. At least you need to buy others, right? Now you tell me whether you understood the indirect, what you call this indirect quote, the logic course as well. Let me know. Yes. You tell me. Right. Nihama, thank you. You have understood that you shouldn't have any gray areas, right? Then Kaushal has a question. Left-hand side figure has to be less than the right-hand side rule. Yes, applicable to both direct and indirect quote. Yes, yes. Whether it's a direct quote or an indirect quote, the LHS has to be less than the RHS. That is why we put this 0.25 to this side and 0.5 to here. Because of this only, offer became to the left-hand side and the became to the other side. How shall I got it? Right. You have to do it on your own. Right? Do it on your own without seeing it. If you get stuck, you just refer. Then you will get the conclusion. Always remember, for any rule for a conclusion, you have a method or a proof of method to illustrate that. So remember to go through those fundamentals, and if you forget, Immediately you should be able to figure out what the correct thing is, right? Don't just buy other theory, except for the fact of this. That's the rule. So none want me to explain again, right? Right. Take down scenario. Take down scenario. Before taking down scenario, I have an exercise. Now you are 2 weeks down next week. Remember, you don't have classes, right? You have abundance of time to find the answer and to write the answer and send me across by a mail. You all know my email address, right? Question is this: what are the differences between? You can, when I say differences, you can quote similarities as well. Huh? What are the differences and similarities? What are the differences and similarities? Similarities in method of payment. In method of payment between DP and open account trade. Between DP and open account trading or open account, right? Open account and DP. So you need to remember, right? DP covers by URC 522. Like that, there are certain things you have to this thing, and you have to fine tune the thing that I have given, and your notes will support that. You can Google search also, and I need about 6 to 7 points. That suffice. Right. Remember one thing: you can listen, you can understand everything, but what matters is the way that you pen on at the time that you've been given for 195 minutes, right? 3 and 50 minutes is the time allocated for your paper. So that all depends what you pen on, right? For that, you need to do yourself how to write very precisely and in point form. And for this also, don't write paragraphs, put it in point form, right? Scenario 1. Related to healthcare is 185. GBP to USD is 1.5. 1.5. And remember, these quotes are always quoted in 4 decimal points. You get 0.1234 like that, right? In this case of 195.0000. In this case of 1.5000. Like that, you get 4 decimal points, right? So USD is 185. GBP to USD is 1.5. Now, this is a direct quote. This is always this one is direct quote, right? Calculate the exchange rate of GBP to LKR. Right. I'll give 2 minutes now. Right. Do it on your own quickly. Right. So you must be attempting in the way of calculating GBP LKR from your own knowledge. It's very easy. It's arithmetic, just linear equation. And you must be trying to figure out what the answer is. So that's a division. There's no division, there's a multiplication, linear multiplication, right? 1.5 into 1.5 will be the answer. Right. But from now onwards, I want you to adopt the method that I'm going to show you. So some of the students may have adopted this, and I will say good, others are good, but the only thing, you need to adopt the system that method that I am talking of, because this is the one that we expected to get a very precise and undisturbed answer. Right. Calculate GBB to LKR. Look at very carefully. GBB to LKR is equivalent to GBB to USD into USD to LKR. See, GBP to LKR is equal to GBP to USD, USD to LKR, USD to USD gets stuck off, the remains is GBP over LKR. How this has come, I will explain later. This unit, this formula has to be by order, right? I took this, this was influenced by a very, what you call linear algebra. If you know a little bit of algebra, this is this. If you take a few characters of A, B, C, D, right? A over C is equal to A over B, B over C, right? This will be possible only B and C is not equal to 0. So this is the method I use here. So if you are slightly, what you call not familiar with it, you can take it down this algebra, and the very fundamental. This is not high mathematics. Very fundamental. This is the one that is really influencing here. So there's a numerator GBP, a denominator is LKR. So I have introduced USD to here as a denominator. Then I should have a numerator as well to start off. Then only the remaining will be GBP to LKR, the quotient. Right? Now just insert the figures. GBP to USD is 1.5. USD to LKR is 185. So this will be the answer given for 4 decimal points. If the 5th decimal point is 5 or more than 5, you add 1 to the 4th basis point. Right. Second scenario. USD to LKR is 185. USD to JPY is equal to 120. Calculate the rate of JPY to LKR. Shall I give 1 minute now? Right, do it and see. Right, now check with me. Here see, JPY to LKR is equivalent to JPY to USD into USD to LKR. Further equivalent to. Now this is JPY to USD. Here the figure being given as 120 is the USD to JPY. So I had to adjust this according to this. So I will take a inversion of the reciprocal or the reciprocal of the inversion, either way. So that means I will take 1 upon USD to JPY into USD to LKR. Right. Equivalent to 1 upon USD to JPY is 120. USD to LKR is 185. That will be answer for the 4 decimal points. If there's a little bit of difficulty of understanding this, I will take a very small arithmetical example, just a quotient like this. If 4 is equal to 4, this is equivalent to 1 upon 4. This is equal to 1 upon, that's the inversion of the reciprocal. 1 upon 4. Right? So 1 divided by quarter will be 4 again. So JPY to USD is equal to 1 upon topsy-turvy of the JPY to USD, that is US to JPY then, is same as JPY to USD. Then you apply. Right. A bit of head biting, I know, but do you understand that? Give me a feedback. Right. Understood. Right. So you are clever. You have a very good, above average algebraic knowledge, the factors knowledge. That's very good. And if you have a little bit of difficulty, you let me know. I can take another example like this if you want to emphasis on that. Say half is equivalent to 2.4. Half is equal to 2.4. So that is equivalent to 1 upon 4.2. 1 upon 4.2. 1 upon 4.2 is 2. So 1 upon 2. 2.4 is 1 upon 2. So that is, you take the inversion of the reciprocal, you will get the same answer. So I have not disturbed the second sentence to the third one. I have just taken the inversion of the reciprocal. If I took the inversion only, then it's wrong because it's equal now. So I took the inversion of the reciprocal. Then it will be the same thing. Now you can instead the figures. Right. What you have understood now? If you have a pair of direct quote and indirect quote, always the cross currency is a multiplication. But if you have a direct quote and a direct quote, the cross currency is what? Direct quote and direct quote, these two, no? These two are direct quotes. Right? Cross currency is these two. It's always a division. So try to do this also. Say GBP to USD is equivalent to 1.5164. UR to USD is equal to 1.2037. Fine. GBP to क्या? There are two parts. GBP not क्या? GBP to USD. Sorry. GBP to UR. UR. Second part. UR to GBP. Write at home and see, and give me a feeder. GBP to USD is 1.5164. UR to USD is 1.2037. Now you appreciate these two are indirect quotes. Indirect quotes. See the result. To get that, you have to have that idea of this one. Right? Right. Now the 5 minutes more, I will explain a little bit of further aspect of it. Not a new session. To give a little bit of influence for this. Remember, no currency could be converted to any other currency without converting that former currency into USD. Sterling pounds cannot be converted to LKR without touching USD. Euro cannot be converted to LKR or vice versa, LKR to UR without touching USD. So any currency in the world cannot be converted to another currency unless USD is involved. Right? That is why I introduced USD here. So if you want to convert Euro to LKR, first UR has to be converted to dollars. The dollars have to be reconverted back to UR. So if you take this first leg, UR has to be converted into dollars, and if you take the second leg, USD has to convert it into LKR. So this is the one actually I wrote. UR to LKR is equal to UR to USD, USD to LKR. UR to USD, USD to LKR. That's how it has come. Now you have a very clear picture, I guess. Right? Because it has not come, just fallen the formula. It is coming from fundamental logic. What you need to remember now is up to this moment, no currency could be converted into another currency if there's no USD. UR to LKR hardly any market. Therefore, you have to convert to USD and USD to LKR. Now, if you get a rate, now there are bankers in here, and if you want to do a transaction, you try to get a rate from your own treasury department. So within seconds they will give a rate. But at the back end of the treasury, they have already done this. So cross currencies are available when a user asks for rate and give. How they have arrived this rate, they will not tell you. This is how they have done that. Right. So all are good now. Any teaching issues or any gray areas? Otherwise, you will go with a heavy headache now, or rather heavy head. For 2 weeks, you will go completely blank on the factor. So therefore, let me have a final what do you call the output of yours, and let me know whether you understood or not. Otherwise, I can rush for another 2 minutes. I have another 2 minutes to go. Just give me a feedback. In the meantime, I'll release the board. All clear. Right. Right. Anybody who did not right, fine. There could be a little bit of an issue when you look at when you go home or having a pause for 1 or 2 days, and if you look at the books again and if you try to figure out, and when you try to do the third scenario that I gave you, you will have a little bit of issue how it has come. Don't buy heart anything, right? Don't buy heart anything. Always go through fundamental. Then the by hearting thing or the remembering of refreshing or recording will come automatically, right? Then try to do on your own. Figure out if you have a little bit of group in your what you call in your departments or in the branches, you can discuss and see whether you can figure out. Right? It's not that difficult. But still, for all, if you have a little bit of a difficulty of understanding once you refer alone, then you always free to contact me. Right? Remember the assignment? This is assignment 2, I guess. Yes. Only one assignment I gave you. Assignment 2. Different similarities between the DP and open account trading, right? And I have given you homework to have your practice of two indirect course and pair it up and find the cross trades, right? So I'll see you week after next. And if you anybody what you call celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas for them also, and have a very splendid season, right? And wishing you all the very best for the review also as well. So we're meeting again on the review, I guess. So compliments of the season also as well, and stay blessed. Don't rush around and go to a crowded place. Stay safe and stay blessed. See you until next time.